Hi everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Anarchist Beauties. Today's episode is the Ladies of Privacy Crypto, and we are sponsored by the good people at Cake Wallet. Please remember that nothing in this episode is financial advice. We always recommend do your own research, and remember, not your keys, not your crypto. I'd like to introduce our awesome guests today. And we, of course, have our Anarchist Beauty, Amy Voluntary, here to represent the private by default champion of ZK Snark's pirate chain, ARRR. We have Kalina Lux here to represent the private smart contract alien technology, Dero. And to represent the OG of privacy, we have the lovely Nam Sardar of the Monero community, who is also the host of Monero Dubai. Welcome, ladies. We have an amazing trifecta of privacy here. How exciting!
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how did you gain an interest in cryptocurrency? Let's start with Nam.
Okay. I recently got into crypto, so around 2020. And it started out because the pandemic, began. And at that point, I kind of panicked. And I had previous sort of intuition and understanding that something was going to happen to the financial system and that we all needed to we all needed to sort of at least try to move away from the banks and the banking system, because the banking system was going to become regulated to a much higher degree than it was at that stage. And I think, since 2020, we've been seeing that happen slowly, and it's going towards the CBDC era. I think the next 2 years will bring in that CBDC era, and that would mean that normal individuals like us would be left without privacy in financial matters. And not just privacy, it's the custodianship and the ownership of your money and your financial assets, which we've seen the banking systems fail in so many places already. And it could potentially happen to where we are living. So I wanted to back up, and I wanted to find out a method that would help protect against, let's say your bank account's getting frozen, your bank account's getting confiscated, getting liquidated, like in Lebanon, for example, where you saw the exchange rate could suddenly drop, within a week to like 1/10 of what it was, and people losing their life savings in a matter of days. And situations like that. So when the pandemic began, I just kind of started having this really strong intuition that something was going to go wrong with the financial system. And I began this frantic research for an alternative to the banking system. And then I landed upon, crypto, TCV actually, and through that like privacy coins and mainly Monero. So that's how I landed on that.
Awesome. And what about you, Amy?
Yeah, I first heard about Bitcoin in 2012, 2013, and I looked into it for a bit, but didn't buy any or get into it then. And then in 2017, a friend mentioned Bitcoin, so I started investigating. And then I started going to white paper reading groups and meetups in 2018, and started attending events and really got into privacy and anonymity coins in 2021. Like from what Nam was saying about the pandemic, and then what do we do, because privacy matters.
Absolutely. And how about you, Kalina?
Yeah, so originally I kind of heard about it circa 2014. I had a friend of mine kind of help me buy some Bitcoin back then. And to be honest, I forgot about it totally. And when I moved to Puerto Rico, because there's a lot of crypto people here on the island, I was like, gosh, I really should go check up on that. And I was like astonished by the number in there. So I started studying crypto super intensely, but ultimately I felt that there was something wrong because I was going down the surveillance pathway. And it just didn't feel like it aligned with me at that time. So I shifted gears and I started my focus on natural law. And especially when the pandemic happened, I focused intensely on trying to strategize and solve the vaccine exemptions. And when I felt like I had adequately completed that mission, I was like, okay, what's the next thing that I can prepare my people for? And that was the social credit score system. So I had already heard about Darrow from the TCV, and it was always kind of like in the back of my head, just like, oh, Darrow, there's something there with Darrow. And so I shifted my focus and my studies to Darrow, and I just felt like this incredible alignment. And I've kind of stuck on that vein ever since.
That's awesome. All right, let's see what's next here. Can you explain what cryptocurrency is for those who may not understand? Amy, would you like to take this one first?
Sure. I had to think about this myself because, cryptocurrency, it's like a digital currency. And I think for us in privacy, like we do want it to be like decentralized and open source. But to me, it's it's a currency that's cryptographically secured and proven, and it's supposed to be used as a medium of exchange.
Awesome. Kalina, did you have anything to elaborate on that? How would you explain it?
Yeah, so I would go a step farther to say that crypto is comes from the word cryptography and encryption. And so I would categorize it as everything that doesn't use privacy protocols is actually just a digital currency to me. And the true cryptos use those things that are actually emphasize privacy. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Definitely. And Nam, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Not sure if I'm adding anything, but yeah, I agree with both Amy and Kalina. Further taking it a step further from digital currency is cryptocurrency, where cryptography is encryption, and a layman who is not able to decrypt that message, that digital transaction, is not able to decipher what went on there. So you're basically talking about digital cash at that stage. And yes, I think there are very few coins out of the thousands of cryptocurrencies that exist today that display the characteristics that are required to call it a proper cryptocurrency, because a transparent coin, which has a ledger that is read by anybody on the planet that would want to go onto the public ledger and read those transactions, that isn't exactly cryptography. It's not cryptography, and it's not cryptographically treated. Those transactions aren't cryptographic. They're just digital transactions. So that was a great point, and I just wanted to add to that. And that's it.
Cool. So our next question here is, what is open source and closed source, and why is that important? Nam, would you like to take the lead on that one?
Sure. So open source is the code behind a software that is readable by other programmers, other than those who have written that code and put that software into effect. So if I'm a software developer or a coder, I should be able to go into the back end of that software and be able to audit it, check for bugs, or verify that the code is running as the white paper says it should. Closed source wouldn't allow for that. So there are open source wallets such as Cake Wallet. There's closed source wallets like Exodus Wallet. There's open source cryptocurrencies, and there's closed source cryptocurrencies. So the best, I think the highest and most, I would say, foolproof methodology of transactions is when you have open source, like open source software, basically, that can be audited by anybody on the planet. and can actually be like Bitcoin is open source. You would take the Bitcoin code, and that's how you have Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash and the other offshoots of Bitcoin. And you're improvising and you're improving on that basic core code that was written by, and because it's an open source project. But for closed source, you're not able to do that. So it is a superior, open source is a superior method of software, I guess, writing and software coding, and closed source is less desirable for that as a user, especially. That's my view on that.
Awesome. And Amy, did you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, it's interesting that I keep on thinking about the free and open source software ethos, and that's different than the the corporate structure. And I've worked in corporate for about 20 years. Whereas like open source, everyone's free to use it. Anyone can look in the repository to look at the source code. And then if the companies, or sorry, not the company, if the code is actually doing what people say they're doing, because anyone can look it up and validate it. Versus with a closed source, like company who owns that code, you don't really know if they're really doing what they're saying they're doing in the marketing materials.
Awesome. Kalina, anything from you on that?
Sure. Yeah. So this one is exciting because I get to kind of touch on the astrological implications of open source, and also the next question with decentralization. It'll kind of tie into that. So the ethos of the age of Aquarius, it kind of just it lends itself to an open source and decentralized nature, because it focuses on things like progress and collaboration, unity, and the collective consciousness. And we can kind of introduce this concept of trustlessness by transparency, but not in the way that the surveillance chain people tell us to do. It's a different, right? So it's transparency by consent. We put our code out there to be audited. Then from that, we can have a deeper sense of trustlessness, which just means trust. kind of counterintuitive there, that our privacy is going to be protected. So it allows us this deeper sense that I know for a fact that my privacy is being respected and upheld because of this, what they've consented to putting publicly out there. So in one hand, we're increasing our privacy technology, but we're also increasing the transparency kind of hand in hand.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll go right with you with the next question then. And what is decentralized and centralized, and why is that important?
Yeah. So with the age of Aquarius, right, we have kind of a shifting away. In the age of Pisces, the sacred geometry of the realm kind of looked pyramidal. So we had a centralized source controlling the many. And in the age of Aquarius, it looks kind of like, a decentralized blockchain, if you will. It kind of looks like the Sri Yantra with all those different nodes. Like if you're familiar with the concept E8, it looks like that. And the cool thing about being decentralized is that it also mimics nature, like with the mycelial networks, and like when we see with like fish and ants and bees, how they all like move together. And even the neural networks, I guess, in the brain. So the decentralization comes with this push, like, right, with that's always in balance. Here we are increasing our technological abilities, and simultaneously we're increasing the nature, right? Because we're going back to nature and mimicking those. So I would say that decentralization kind of comes to us as an expression of returning to nature, even though we're in the digital age.
Awesome. And Nam, would you like to elaborate?
Sure. From a technical standpoint, which I tend to focus on that side of things. You would consider a decentralized network set of nodes that are independent and that transmit the exact same replica of the database to all the other nodes that they're connected to. So a centralized network is where all the transactions are recorded, and that centralized entity then controls the only existing place where those transactions are recorded, and they're not necessarily replicated, and therefore they are up for manipulation at that centralized location. I don't know if that is clear, but maybe elaborating on that is, let's say you have a centralized authority that is the only authority maintaining all kinds of records related to the monetary system, such as a central bank. They are the only ones that have all authority to issue new currency and to maintain all records related to the issuance or to the retraction of it, in which case there isn't any transparency. But in a decentralized database, you would have multiple nodes, theoretically countless nodes that would replicate that database, and there would be absolutely no scope for, corruption and, manipulation, let's say, by a central authority. So a decentralized network is far superior. Obviously, it takes up a lot more resources than you would need in a centralized database with one control center. So it's a lot. It's energy. I guess it's energy intensive, but at the same time, it is efficient in a manner that provides the trustless communication to all the parties involved in that network.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that. And, what would we do if we took away power from one centralized group? Amy, would you like to go further on that?
Yeah, I was thinking about this and how I approach my voluntary work for Pirate Chain as well. When I was attending those white paper reading groups back then, we read a book called The Starfish and the Spider: The Unstoppable Power of Leaderless Organizations. And the premise behind that is that, when people look at an organization, they say, well, who's in charge? Who's the CEO? And then they look for that person for authority. But with a spider model, if you cut off the head of the spider, then the spider dies. Versus a starfish, if you cut off a leg, then two grow in its place. So you start cutting off the starfish, and then more pop up in it. So more leaders pop up in its place. And that's the same way in some of these technologies. The book talks about how Apache and the Apache Indians, where you can't stop something when you have guerrilla warfare versus a very structured, organized process.
Awesome. All right. And Amy, would you like to start us with this one? What are keys or seed phrases, and what is it meant by not your keys, not your crypto?
Yes, and I've learned my lesson myself, that not your keys, not your crypto. Your private keys are private to you. There's the public addresses, which is how other people have that address to send you crypto. But the private keys are yours, and then whoever owns those private keys owns that crypto. So then if you ever lose your private keys, that's, that crypto is gone. Or someone steals those keys, they can access your crypto. But yeah, I learned my lessons in centralized exchanges where I had, I bought stuff on there, and when those places went under, it was not my crypto. So unless you hold your crypto in your own cold storage wallet, like a Trezor, or your own mobile hot wallet, but with self-custody keys like Edge, Pirate is now on Edge. I've used Pirate on Edge, Monero on Edge. So, again, not your keys, not your crypto. And I learned that lesson very well. And I should have known better because I was already a Crypto Vigilante subscriber at that point.
Awesome. Nam, how about you?
Yes, so a seed phrase is usually either 12 or 24 or 25 words that you would get when you create a hot wallet or a cold wallet. A cold wallet being the physical devices like a ledger or Trezor and so on. Hot wallets are those that you would download from the Google Play Store or the iPhone store. I'm not an iPhone user. I don't know what that, I guess it's called the Apple Store. But yeah, so either of those, as long as the seed phrase, that those 12 words or the 24 words or the 25 words, whatever that is, if that's with you, you've written it down, then that is your keys, as they say. And so then the crypto that you're holding in that wallet would be your coins. So not your keys, not your coins, or not your keys, not your crypto means if you're holding it on, let's say, a Coinbase or a Binance or any of those exchanges, you literally are not given that seed phrase. When you're not given that seed phrase, that crypto held there is not in your control. It's basically like in a bank account that gets frozen. Very little difference in that sense. This is just crypto, but that would be cash that you would hold in a bank account. And all of a sudden, that's not yours anymore because, hey, we had, the bank went under and they froze your account to bail the bank out or whatever it was. So similar, I guess, thought process. And holding your seed phrase and holding your keys is basically that's what it means. And it's always a good idea to hold your crypto or as much of it as you need. In my case, for example, I hold a little bit of crypto on exchanges because I have like debit cards associated with that crypto. So like I have a Binance card, for example, that I tend to use for transactions. But aside from like a small amount, I don't, I try not to keep much on any exchange. And I think best practice would be keep most of your crypto with you under your keys.
Definitely. Kalina, anything to add?
Nope, I think you guys covered it beautifully.
Awesome. All right, we will move on to the next question. Nam, what is the difference between crypto and a CBDC?
CBDCs are central bank digital currencies. I think we've all heard of them. They are the government and the institutionalized cryptocurrency, or they call it crypto, but basically it's a digital currency that governments are bringing in. Most governments around the world are working on some form of central bank digital currency. And I would say in the next couple of years to maximum 2, maybe 3 years, we would be in a CBDC type of environment. How is that different from the decentralized cryptocurrencies that we are familiar with today? It's very different. As we talked about centralized versus decentralized earlier, it basically is a centralized system that controls all issuance and all debt associated with those currencies. Going a step further, it also is a very transparent means of transacting, where all transactions are visible and recorded. And not only that, they go another step further with putting expiry dates on that currency, and having to use it in certain geographic locations, restricting usage based on geographic locations. Then we're talking carbon credits, all of that stuff that's coming in, and I know we've all heard of it.
You have been paid 2,000 central bank digital tokens. The following fees are being deducted: accommodation fee, food ration fee, recycling fee, clean energy fee, personal greenhouse gas emissions fee, climate change fee, diversity fee. Your current remaining balance is 5 central bank digital tokens, and if not spent, it will expire in 7 days.
So there's going to be a level of control associated with CBDCs that is unseen in our lives. and in the life, well, I would say except for China, maybe, most people haven't seen that level of control by a government issued currency. So the distinction between regular crypto as we know it, whether it's Monero, Parachain, Dero, Bitcoin, any of the offshoots of Bitcoin like Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, etc. We're looking at a radically different centralized government-owned cryptocurrency that would aim to control and verify each user's detailed, business, I guess. And we should all be aware of this new development that's coming, and what that what that implies for each of us in our daily lives and everybody we know, because this would imply a level of control that's been unseen in any of our lives. And I think awareness about this is extremely important. Discussions about this are so important. Informing those who are absolutely clueless about what crypto is, what digital currencies are, how what we have today is different from what's coming and what's going to be brought in the near future. I know I haven't gone into like the level of detail that this particular topic can involve, but just briefly, this is how I feel about it.
No problem. Kalina, anything to add?
I mean, I think you covered it extremely well. I feel like for the person for our audience right now, I think you covered it perfectly. And there's really not much I would add to that aside from the fact that yes, these things are crazy and scary, but because we've known about them for so long, I believe that we have people in our collective communities that have been preempting these, and that if you're hearing about this for the first time potentially, or not, just know in your heart that this construct that we exist in does honor free will, and that there already are exit systems, like exit strategies for us. And all we have to do is just tap into those like we're doing today. And if you're watching this, you're already ahead of the game. And don't proceed with fear, proceed with power, because the fact that we're even having this call means that we're already winning. We've already won. We're just catching up to it in real life.
Awesome. Amy, anything to add?
Yeah, the discussion about central bank digital currencies, it's all about control. Like, people want to control us so that anything we can do, like, it's money's supposed to be private. We should be able to transact freely. And if everything's tracked and traced, that's like a central control system. Just like, and then for people who are not understanding what's coming, it's the same thing, how moving people away from cash to numbers in your online bank account. It's like, again, if you don't hold your cash, is that really there? Or, once they go from just numbers in your bank account to, oh, this is something where you can only spend so much, like, hey, I'm not allowed to buy that candy bar because I've got diabetes, or whatever construct that they might control, make up for control. That's not a world that I really want to be in. And that's why I'm trying to get involved in all the privacy cryptos.
Awesome. So, Amy, why does privacy matter? Why should we care?
Because money's supposed to be private. Like, we're supposed to have private, we're supposed to have privacy, private lives. Like, not everything's supposed to be out there and tracked and traced and logged forever. Like, similar to also social media, like something you said like 10 years ago, is that really supposed to be cataloged? And like you can find something about everyone, right? You can find something that was like, oh, you said this, or you're not supposed to buy that. Anything can be deemed illegal by the so-called governments. So I know I'm here representing Pirate, but I also run a local Monero meetup group, and I've also bought Dero. And I want to support the privacy projects because privacy will be critical to survival.
Absolutely. Kalina?
This question is super dear to my heart. As you guys might know, that I live off grid, alone, in the middle of nowhere. And one of the things that being out here in nature has taught me is the importance of privacy at such a deep fundamental level, on a spiritual level also. I found that my behaviors were so drastically different living here, where I could scream at the top of my lungs and nobody would ever hear, compared to when I was living in San Diego in an apartment. So this really began my discovery into privacy as a spiritual practice. And what I've discovered is that it seems so counterintuitive in the world when we look at like how we think government makes us act in integrity, and we think surveillance will lead to more integrity in the world. But what I've discovered is it's the opposite. By having these overarching eyes constantly peering on us with this, like, you better not mess up or else energy, the human nature that becomes expressed is not natural. It is so far from the state of nature that what happens is that people begin to express what's called like bad behaviors, right? Those lower behaviors that we see in society. Then they justify having more rules to govern those bad behaviors, but really they're caused by that observation. When you return back to privacy, and when you return back to a natural state where we're not having these laws imposed on us, what I've discovered is that integrity is the thing that blossoms naturally. Integrity and these behaviors that are deemed as noble and honorable, this is our natural state as humans. And privacy really allows one to, quote, know thyself on such a deep level that those behaviors are the natural expression. So privacy is massively important for the return of dignity to the human species, so that we can begin to express the natural next expression of what humanity's evolution is.
Awesome. Nam, anything to add?
I will add, again, from a very technical viewpoint, I will add the properties of money and privacy, and why privacy is part of that spectrum of the properties that define good money. So we have portability. Money should be able to be carried around or easily transacted with. Acceptability should be widely accepted by all members of society to enable transacting freely. There's divisibility, so having enough decimal points where you're able to divide and make the smallest of transactions feasible. Money should be scarce. It shouldn't be printed like in the trillions, like what we have today, with the Fed printing their trillions in the post-pandemic sort of rescue packages and what have you. It should be durable, so it should survive over time. And finally, it should be fungible. A lot of Bitcoiners leave this one out, and fungibility is where the privacy aspect comes in. You ask how important is privacy, or why is privacy important? A person transacting with another person, those two people should be the only two people aware of that transaction. That transaction is absolutely nobody else's business. So, and that's what cash offers us. But when they eliminate cash, and when cash is increasingly sort of removed from society with Visa and MasterCard, and now with cryptocurrencies that are transparent, then we're losing that one-on-one, that two parties to the transaction being aware of that transaction, because then there's a whole host of parties that are involved in that transaction because they're able to see that transaction for whatever reason that they might say that's needed. So those six factors are important for good money. Metals have it. Gold and silver carry these properties, and very few cryptocurrencies, as we know, have these properties. So that is why privacy is really important as a factor of good money.
Awesome. Something that Captain Dreyeth actually explained to me too that I didn't realize, but when you go to the grocery store and you use the Shoppers Club cards or whatever, every single time that you're doing that, they're actually monitoring every little thing that you buy so that they know how to market to you. So that's just another little example I wanted to throw in there, that it's kind of creepy that these advertisers know that much about us. And I can't remember which platform it was exactly. I think it's Amazon, but one of them has their marketing down so well that they know that a woman is pregnant, like almost before she does. It's crazy. Companies, governments, whomever should not have this kind of information about people, period. Oh, let's see. Kalina, why or why not Bitcoin? And not to poo-poo on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is Bitcoin, big granddaddy. But why not?
Yeah. So I really like what Nam said and brought up the points about fungibility. And that's the most obvious technical one. But I feel like you ladies can express the technical aspects, whereas I'm really wanting to focus for this interview on kind of like the more philosophical reasons, right? And in this one in particular, for me personally, I don't choose to align my currency or my energy with something that just goes against my values. Because I believe in privacy so much at a fundamental spiritual level, putting my physical currency or my energetic currency in something like Bitcoin would basically detract from the potency of my ability to create and exist in my integrity. So using the alchemical principles of as above, so below, it just didn't make sense to me that I would do that. Now, if you're a person out there, maybe that's not part of your spiritual ethos, you can look at it like this. Yes, sure, it might be a potential return on investment. So you have to kind of know yourself, right? So ask yourself, are you really in it for the profit? Well, sure, because that might catapult you in the future into higher abilities to live your truth. Or if you're like me, and you're really wanting to create your focus. I know that when I turn my attention on something, it grows and becomes the focus of my life. So I am choosing to invest in those things that create the world that I want to be a part of.
Cool. How about you, Amy?
Yeah, I see a difference between the privacy and anonymity coins, such as Pirate Chain and Monero, versus pretty much everything else that isn't private. From what Nam was saying, because Bitcoin can be tracked and traced and surveilled, that means anything you do on Bitcoin, it's there, tracked. So to me, it's not fungible. So it technically isn't money. There are things that people can do in Bitcoin or Bitcoin Lightning transaction, like many, many, many transactions. But if someone had the will and the resources, they can track and trace Bitcoin. But given that Bitcoin is still the market leader, right? It's like out of all of crypto, it's like 45%. So it's the big market leader out there. I have Bitcoin, but I don't consider it as money. But again, you can make money on anything, right? You can buy and trade, sell anything, whether it's stock or Beanie Babies. But, I wouldn't consider Beanie Boy Babies money. So again, money sorry, Nam, I know you did the whole definition, but yeah, money needs to be fungible, medium of exchange, and store of value. And that could be debated in the cryptocurrency community, because the word cryptocurrency, it says currency, it doesn't say crypto money. But yeah, it's like, I think it's a personal decision for everybody, like where you want to participate. But again, we're focused on the privacy coins and technologies as money.
Absolutely. Something I would like to point out really quick too is that, if you have somebody's Bitcoin address, you can see how much they have, and that is not something that's anybody's business. Nam, what about you? Why or why not Bitcoin?
Yeah, exactly. So how you guys mentioned, and Amy, you mentioned, there are very few cryptocurrencies that qualify as money, right? In today's world, we're looking at literally, you can count them on the fingers of one hand out of thousands and thousands of cryptocurrencies. So, like, let's say cash, fiat cash, US dollars, euros, Japanese yen, Swiss francs, any of that is fiat currency, but it's just not good money because they're printing unlimited amounts of it. And with printing, we mean they're creating that much out of thin air. Let's not go into how central banks create the currency that goes into effect and that floods our market and causes inflation. That is an entirely different podcast on its own. But inflation is something that harms every one of us. It creeps into our savings. We were just having a discussion downstairs with my family that money sitting in your bank account is losing anywhere between 15 to 20% annually. So even if you see that your bank is offering you a small 2 or 3% interest on your savings account just to leave your money there, you're looking at 20 minus 3%. Yeah, they're giving you the 3%, but you're losing 17% that you're not seeing. So you might have 100 in there this year, and the same 100 is there in your account plus 3%, so 103 next year. But you've actually lost, you've lost 17 out of that number. So you're somewhere in like 80 something. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is inflation is our enemy, and we cannot counter that with unlimited amounts of fiat currency. So currencies don't make good money. The currency that we all live around, most of us live around US dollars and or some other variation of it. Like here in the UAE, we have US dollar pegged currencies. It's all the same thing, petrodollars, US dollars. They're all in unlimited supply, and we're losing a lot of purchasing power every year. So how are we ever going to try and get over and at least maintain our standard of living if we don't take active measures against that? Well, we need to keep most of our purchasing power in assets that cannot be devalued as easily as fiat can be. So yeah, I don't even remember what the question was. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We were talking about why or why not Bitcoin.
All right, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin does have this beautiful characteristic, which is scarcity. And, it's most famous for being scarce and the 21 million and never going beyond that number and so on and so forth. However, good money is not just from, it doesn't just come from scarcity. There's other factors involved. And, we have cryptocurrencies that actually do satisfy all 6 qualities of characteristics of money. Bitcoin doesn't, because it's not fungible. No two Bitcoin are the same. When a Bitcoin is minted on the ASIC computer or the ASIC machine that mines Bitcoin, and once it goes out into the world, the miner who has minted that Bitcoin sells it on an exchange to pay his electricity charges and other expenses. Once that Bitcoin is freely floating in the universe, every single Bitcoin has its own unique sort of journey. And that journey is different for each one, and it's recorded on a very transparent database, and that is easily audited. Every 3-letter agency is decoding every single Bitcoin address that exists in today's world. So that is just not a good form of money, which is why I think Bitcoin will not. It is a market leader today, but let's see how long it stays that way. I'm not very sure that will continue forever.
I think I definitely agree with you on that. Amy, so obviously everybody likes gold and silver. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does have some downfalls. Why or why not gold and silver compared to crypto?
Yeah, I think they're different, right? I like to diversify. I'm a gold and silver bug. I've had gold and silver for over 10 years. Actually, I just went to a store last weekend and bought some more silver, physical silver, not stock certificates of gold and silver. But different use cases, different tools for different things, right? If I need to bug out, I'm taking the physical gold and silver that I have on hand with me. And then if I'm transacting with someone else privately and they're not local to me, then crypto is a good way to do that, especially privacy cryptos. But to me, they're different things. And again, everybody needs to judge for themselves, like where they feel comfortable, where they diversify, and each person's situation is different.
Absolutely. Nam?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of metals, gold and silver. In my culture, they're very, very important and have been historically. Um, Crypto has not disrupted metals in where I come from, not in a big way. So I have a lot of faith in our historic money, which has been gold and silver for thousands of years. They do carry a downfall, like you said. There is a shortcoming, which is that they're like Amy mentioned. If someone is at a distance, how would you transact using gold or silver, right? You need the portability factor is what is missing. So yeah, let's say shit hits the fan. I'm sorry about the language. You don't, fiat currency collapses and you have this sort of end of world scenario. What would you do? Well, you would take your physical and you would try and transact and get your food and your necessary requirements met through those channels or through crypto. But if that person wasn't in your direct vicinity, then gold and silver, that's where it fails, and you're not going to be able to do that transaction because carrying gold physically on a person on an international flight is almost next to impossible. I mean, apart from what you're wearing, so it becomes hard. Portability.
Definitely. Kalina, anything to add?
Yeah, well said, you guys, on that. And I agree with both of those sentiments. And I'd love to share the astrological implications of this. Did you guys know that the last age or epoch that we used gold and silver primarily was in the age of Taurus, approximately 4,000 to 5,000 years ago? And as we know, Taurus is an earth sign. And so Taurus corresponds to all those earthly things, gold and silver, obviously. And because we're shifting into the age of Aquarius, and that actually, some people have coined the term electroquarius, which I personally love. It implies this kind of energy that is air, right? Aquarius is an air sign, but also this electric, etheric element to it. So it really corresponds quite nicely to cryptocurrencies. And all the concepts of Aquarius, right? Progress, collaboration, innovation, decentralization, kind of support cryptocurrency. So I obviously hold gold and silver physical for the alchemical purposes of it, right? Because I really believe that as above, so below. And if those are elements that you want to work with in your physical body for whatever purposes, it's nice to have them on hand. And as well as if you ever have to, as you said, Nam, shift hits the fan. Yeah, it's good. But I have had people that have carried it across to like Southern America, and they've just gotten it confiscated. And that's scary, So until we find our own private ways of transporting these things, it really does come with some challenges per se. But I think that it is interesting to think about the astrological correlations. And I just kind of look at the astrology clock that just it tells us patterns, right? Like, okay, here was this pattern in this time, and here's this pattern. And if we are in tune with that, we can kind of begin to predict what might come useful in our current age.
Awesome. So, Kalina, can crypto be banned?
Oh, so if we consent to it, it can, because in natural law, you can't do that. That's impossible, right? Why would a group of men and women calling themselves a government have any more power over me unless I give them that power, right? So while essentially, yeah, they can make it very hard for us and they can intimidate us like a group of bullies that they are into not using these things, I think it's going to be really up to us to express our sovereignty and our rights to transact with this. And I think that the privacy coins, like all of us right now, I think that those lend itself to a natural expression of claiming that right. So no, technically, but they can make us think that they have.
Yeah, I agree with that. They can make rules saying that something is going to be deemed illegal or banned. And, they can ban anything. But again, that's why privacy will be important, and the privacy and anonymity coins to transact and do business the way we want to transact. That'll be important.
Awesome. Nam?
Yeah, so actually, a few months ago, the local government here in the UAE and Dubai have actually banned Monero. And when I say banned, they've prohibited all activities related to it. So I was running the Monero meetup and I've had to stop that. But I mean, so imagine, this is one country out of hundreds of countries. Now, I don't honestly think that the ban can extend globally. And I don't think a truly decentralized currency can truly be banned. I don't think that's possible.
I think you're absolutely correct, because how many times has China tried to ban Bitcoin?
Yeah. And
Just
India
continues to
and other
fail.
places.
I sell Bitcoin at top, but we need to move market down. Say China ban Bitcoin. Nah, sure, we used it 15 times already. But it still work. Okay, I try. Yeah, hello, internet. Yeah, see, this is a big cheaper bank of China. Yeah, we ban Bitcoin now. What? What? Oh dear God, China's banning Bitcoin. Sell it all.
Yeah.
Yep.
And and I think Monero's in that phase where it's getting banned, like Bitcoin used to get banned. And
Mhm.
eventually all these countries that have constantly banned and unbanned and banned and unbanned have finally come onto the same page, as in, like, you cannot really ban Bitcoin. But I guess at this stage they're still trying to control Monero, and I think it's the next frontier because they're not able to trace it. So the fight is on, and we'll see how it goes. But I really think it's hard. It's not easy to do that.
Awesome. So, Nam, what if the internet gets shut down? What would happen?
Yeah, I mean that would destroy crypto, no doubt, at least temporarily, and market caps would tank and so on. But how long can internet be shut down for?
Right.
It's just such an essential part of, even to go out, for me in my case, and pay the parking, on a street where I park my car on the streets. I need the internet on a daily basis. So, and for any kind of government service, literally for everything. So it's such an unlikely scenario. It's like saying, what if the sun doesn't rise one morning almost? I mean, yeah, could happen, but who knows? We're not prepared for it.
Awesome. Kalina?
So I like this question for the philosophical implications of it. And to me, I feel like protecting yourself digitally online, it only comes secondary to protecting yourself in the third dimensional aspects, right? So in my case, I'm lucky to live off grid and have my own food and water source and power source. And so that security, I actually would look forward to the internet getting shut down, because I watch people here at my Airbnb, there's no Wi-Fi for the guests because it's like really shady. So when the guests come their first day, they're like fidgeting, like, oh my God, I need my Wi-Fi. And by the second and third day, I watch this amazing transformation where families come together, they start singing together, and they've returned to their organic state as a human. And it would be the best thing possible for us if the internet got shut down, because then we would get that little pause and wow, like when we return to nature, there's just a magic and a healing that happens that is unlike anything else. So I feel like protecting ourselves digitally only comes secondary or in alignment, right? So one in one, as we increase our protection digitally, we increase our protection in the real world, either with things like gold and silver or with little ways of securing your food networks. Like if you're in town, you want to know who your farmers are, etc. So I think that that would be amazing. And I do feel like, if I can remember correctly, in the case of Darrow, if the internet shut down, really nothing would happen to Darrow, because of the way that the Darrow blockchain is. Once any internet got restored, it would already be right there and you'd have your coins. So Darrow is particularly unique in that case. But for the rest of the world, I think it's game on. Let's go. It's exciting, right? Well, what could happen?
Amy?
Yeah, I've been a long time prepper, so I actually think about this like quite a lot. I don't
Definitely.
know, like, yeah, things that I think I should be doing from this question mentioned here. Like, I do have a silver lined Faraday bag for my phone. It's in my purse. I don't always use it, or I should use it more. Yeah, but I think if the internet does shut down, things will become hyper local, where people like, how do you get food and water? And then we might be going back to like, what can we trade or barter or use gold and silver? And then what happens with the blockchain? I don't know, with proof of work blockchains, if some devices survive, the longest blockchain wins, like the longest proof wins. So if everything and if everything goes to shit, it doesn't matter. You're going to be very local anyway, right? So you're transacting locally, and if you're doing crypto locally, and then maybe once things finally get sorted out, then they can sort it out. What's the official ledger for the longest chain of the blockchain, and then they'll sort that out. One of the things I want to mention from your questions was it ham radios, or how do you transact without the internet? And about a month ago, where I live, there was a hackathon. And I know people have talked about ham radios transmitting, Bitcoin and crypto over radio waves. But this hackathon group, just a couple of guys, they use Bluetooth, which is in your computers. Bluetooth is a radio frequency. They ended up writing a program to just like transfer crypto, for them specifically Bitcoin, over Bluetooth by putting two computers really, really close to each other.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, if the internet goes down, you can and those computers survive, you can still transmit Bluetooth.
That's incredible. All right, let's see. And Kalina, this one's kind of more so for you. Can you explain what is a smart contract?
Absolutely. Yeah. So because on Darrow has private smart contracts. So a smart contract is essentially a self-executing contract with basically all the terms and agreements you would make in a normal contract written into the code. So it automatically executes when a predetermined condition is met, and it eliminates the need for any intermediaries or third parties or banks or people that say you got to get approved. And the beautiful thing about it being private, like on Darrow, is that it's nobody's business, right? It is nobody's business. And I just want to also clarify that the smart contract code is open source, right? But the interactions and the transactions in that smart contract are private by default. Now on Darrow, there is, if you need to do something like in a DAO, you can have them to be transparent. You can code that in, but it's by default coded to be private. So yeah, it's really exciting when you think about smart contracts in the world of like real estate or pretty much anything. It kind of just eliminates the need to trust people. You don't get any shady loan agents, and it does the job for you, which is really great if you want to automate, like if you want to pay your employees and automate that. I mean, it's going to really allow for a lot of freedom. and in turn restore dignity to humanity with the privacy element.
Awesome. Nam, was there anything you wanted to add on smart contracts?
No, I think that's both Amy and Kalina have covered it really well, so I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Amy, was there anything that you wanted to say about smart contracts?
Yeah, I think in the world of contracts, because like in a contract, there's an agreement between like two parties. Like a smart contract is just that contract is written in code. Like if X happens, then do Y. So then it's like, the reason why we see so many of this smart contract stuff with digital arts and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, is because it's really easy to write a smart contract for like, okay, pay this amount of crypto, send this digital file, and now do that transaction. So like that's the easy part, right? Versus once you get into the real world things that are not digital, that gets a little more complicated. So then when you get into like what happens when you have a deed or a title and governments, like the contract and writing the contract, that's the easy part. So how do you get all of that involved in the real world to make sure that transfer of ownership happen? Again, even in crypto where like a smart contract to say like, oh, you're transfer a diamond or a piece of art with history and provenance, like how do you make sure the thing you're transferring in the contract is the thing it is? Like diamonds are a good example where you can etch a number in, but anything else, there are real world and that's why we see so much digital art, like a lot of times like there's like a plethora of art, and now with all the AI stuff there's going to be a lot of art, but transferring that's easy just because right now it's digital. So a digital smart contract to transfer a digital item, that's where we're at. But right, anything can be written into a smart contract, and then we'll see something like maybe smart contract law get into it.
Awesome. All right. Our last question now of how can you invest? Nam, would you like to start?
Yes, so I like this question. It's something I talk about a lot. Number one step to investing is spending less than, well, saving more than you spend. So saving first and then spending an allocated amount. And when I say saving, I mean investing. So taking money aside to invest every month or as frequently as you would collect your paycheck, and then saving only spending only the allocated amounts. So that's number one. And then uh, investing in assets and investing basically in assets that would give you a return that's higher than the inflation that we're currently experiencing, which is high. So you want to beat inflation with your investments, and you want to keep as much of your collections, which is your income, aside for investing as you could. Obviously, this is such a long and deep topic, but in like a short, summary, that's what investing would entail.
Awesome. Amy?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate as well, like this is not financial advice, right? And I think everyone's situation and personal preferences are different. So everybody has to look for themselves what they're comfortable with and really do their research and learn like what it is they want to invest in, and what they believe in. Specifically for Pirate, if you're interested in Pirate Chain, the symbol is R, ARRR, or R for Pirate. And to learn more about Pirate Chain, the official website is pirate.black. But then Pirate is now available on the Edge app wallet, which is edge.app. And then there are exchanges, non KYC, like non know your customer, where they're not going to ask for your information, where you can buy Pirate Chain. And that's available on the pirate.black website as well under exchanges. And there are KYC exchanges such as KuCoin and Trade Ogre, where you can do that for Pirate Chain.
Awesome. Kalina?
So I actually interpreted this question to be like the technical ways, like how can you, right? So I'm glad that you guys covered the advice, well, the non-advice, right, on that. So if you're interested in Darrow in particular, you could get it from Trade Ogre or KuCoin. But I really recommend going through ways like peer-to-peer, and in my Discord server, there's a channel there for that. And one of my fellow community members in the Darrow community just created a bi-directional XMR to Darrow trustless swap in his Discord server. So that's going to be super exciting for, just basically opening up ways that we can kind of cross interact there. And I would just leave you guys with, definitely do not opt for the know your customer route. If you care about your privacy, start today with finding every strategy possible for decentralizing your identity. And that also goes with not uploading your passport into some exchange. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Awesome. So I also have Lily here who's been patiently waiting. I asked her to please be a part of this because she is our best person for use case that I wanted to bring in from our Anarchist Beauties. If she's available, hopefully she'll pop on. Katie or Minxie, did either of you have any additional questions pop up that you could think of, or do you think we've covered everything pretty well?
From my perspective of being a real crypto beginner, this was a lot of very good information. And I really appreciated the way you guys could explain it and break it down. The crypto is something that I only have a very vague understanding that it even exists. And then last week I hopped on a call with Crystal and Ryan, and they explained it to me quite a bit. But this today was very helpful. So I appreciate everything that you guys shared today.
And Minxie, you use a little bit of crypto in your work, is that correct or no?
Yeah, so I have used a little bit of crypto in my work in the past and stuff like that. I'm kind of like Katie in that sense where I'm fairly new to crypto. I live in Southern Alberta, so crypto usage isn't really a big thing here. It's also very hard to obtain a lot of these alternative currencies and stuff around here. But you guys did touch on a lot of like really good points, and I learned a lot for sure. Enough for me to actually kind of like dive into it a little bit more myself. But you guys did really bring up some good points, and especially with the central banking system, we're already seeing it here in Canada where a lot of centralized banks are actually paying their tellers and stuff like that to report any accounts that they suspect of working in the sex industry or drugs or anything like that, and shutting them down or freezing them. And it's a big push for digital currency right now. And I kind of see the digital currency is a really big, huge problem in our future too. Like it's going to really affect a lot of like black market, gray market areas. And that affects all of us on some level, like even down to your, school baking, things like that. So yeah, definitely something that we should really be looking into, pushing a little more into for decentralizing our banking system, because eventually we're not going to be able to have any use of our money at all. And I think in places like China, you actually have to use up your money before a certain time or you lose it. And I'm sorry, but no bank or government should have that much control over our money. We should be able to save if we want, buy a house if you want. It shouldn't be that controlled. And I think this is going to be the future for sure.
Awesome. was just trying to get Miss Lily's attention. I think she might have walked away from her phone, or maybe she froze. Oh, there she is. Hi, Lily.
I'm here. Hey, what's up? What's the question?
Well, I was just saying that you are our best example with our Anarchist Beauties of use case when it comes to crypto. So do you mind just sharing your experience a little bit with that?
Yeah, so I'll go back to my beginning with crypto, which was back in 2012, the beginning of 2012. And when I bought in at $30 a coin, obviously I do not have those coins anymore, but when I bought in, I was just like, wow, this is something that can really be used to exist without banks. I had no idea that I would completely depend on it. And my lifestyle, being an unbanked person, does not work without crypto. I get paid by quite a few of my jobs in crypto. And yeah, I do have to find ways to exchange it to pesos in my case, because I'm in Mexico, to buy things that, from people that don't accept crypto. I don't think I would have even embarked on what has become a very famous life path for me if I didn't, if I didn't have crypto in my life. Like when I was contemplating going on the run now almost 8 years ago, I was, okay, well, what about banking? Okay, we'll just use crypto. And it was kind of a no-brainer, and it's just kind of been that way ever since. So yeah, that's kind of what I've got for it.
Yeah, and the lesson learned of don't spend 2 Bitcoins on pizza. Is that correct?
Okay, yeah. So I spent 2 Bitcoins on pizza and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I spent 1 Bitcoin on a cell phone bill that was $50 a month. I spent a Bitcoin when it went up to $100 a coin. I bought a Huffy bike from Kmart, because back then you could use gift, or I think it was called eGift, and it was a mobile a mobile gift card app, and you could use Bitcoin to buy gift cards. And it was just so much money was spent. In the series, they mentioned the fact that we had 130 Bitcoin. Well, we did when it was worth between $10 and $100 a coin. And then oh, life got expensive, decided to live off grid. And it's okay, we'll spend a couple of Bitcoin on groceries. We'll spend some Bitcoin on gas. And then all of a sudden, all the Bitcoin's gone. And then it started to hit up into 1,000, and we started to feel stupid. And then really felt stupid. Every time Bitcoin hits a new height, I do the math and I facepalm. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. And I think that about wraps us up today, unless anyone else had anything else that they would like to add. I would like to throw in there that to find more information about Pirate Chain, you can go to pirate.black. And to find more information about Monero, you can find that at getmonero.org. And to find more information about Darrow, you can find that at darrow.io. And again, to repeat, this is not financial advice. Please do your own research. Always, always, always remember, not your keys, not your crypto. And another big shout out to Cake Wallet for sponsoring this episode. Ladies, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining us for this. I think it was awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it was really awesome getting to meet you guys. And it's just, I think it's super cool that we're doing this, right? Who else to unite the tribes but the ladies?
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.